everybody's faces. I'm very excited to introduce our demo artist today, Rita Rackley. She is a cultural mythologist. She's an author, educator, a wise storyteller, and a very cool expressive artist. She's also recently published Bone Woman, Wisdom, and Outsider Art. And today she is going to share part of her aspect of her essence of painting, hopefully helping all of us open up our wellspring of creativity. So, as she said, my flower doesn't look like a flower, reclaiming the joy and innocence of creating art. So, please join with me in welcoming our demo artist, Rita Rackley. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Desiree. Thank you, thank you.
Rita, I'm sorry to jump in.
Yes.
Please mute yourself if you, other artists, not Rita, please Rita, don't mute yourself.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
But all the other people here, if you can mute yourself. If you don't, I think I can. And please, if you have questions, jot them down. If you have something to jot them down on, or type them into the chat. But because of the flow of today's talk with Rita and the demo and all, we're going to try to save questions for the end. So I hope that's good for everyone. And if you don't want yourself on the recording, because we're recording now, put a little sticky or something over your camera lens if you don't want to be memorialized. But we love your face. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. And thank you, Bobby, for your assistance in this new Zoom world that we're all trying to find our way through, and to Central Coast Art Association. So this is a first for me. So we're all going to go on an adventure today, because I've never done anything like this, but it's perfect being an outsider artist, because it's full permission to not be in control. So I want to give you a little bit of a definition of what an outsider artist is. And this comes from a gallery in Chicago, Illinois. It's one of the largest outsider art galleries in the world, I do believe. It's called Intuit. And what they say is outsider art is the work of artists who demonstrate little influence from the mainstream art world, and who are instead motivated by their own unique personal visions. They have no formal training. They did not attend art school or have academic art instructions. Their work is created outside of mainstream fine art. They create simply for themselves in order to make sense of their experience, interest, and the world around them. They engage with their surroundings on their own terms. They do not follow the rules of the art world. Outsider art is created for the self and not necessarily for the artist. Many outsider artists are known as visionary artists. Some create art because they believe they received a message from God or some other spiritual intelligent source. Many mainstream artists, outsider artists, use non-traditional materials and found objects. This is a piece of plywood that I had outside. They also use non-traditional repurposed materials, particularly when they don't have access to art supplies. And a large part of my outsider art journey has been a way for me to process my own emotions, my response to what's going on socially and politically in the world. So when I go to my canvas, I have no idea what will ultimately come through. I may have an emotion, I may have a feeling, but I don't necessarily have it. I'm not going there to paint. So this is a process. Usually when I am doing outsider art, it's like I'm going into another world. And I know probably a lot of you feel that when you paint, you go into that timeless time and you're just simply with what's coming through. My dear teacher, Chris Zidell, for process art. And so I'm going to tell you the story about how I even began this journey. And this began in 2015. When I was in the third grade, I had a third grade teacher, and she held up my painting of a flower, and she held it in front of the whole class. And she said, "This is how you don't paint a flower." So now my little third grade little girl went into so much shame that it took me almost 45 years to even pick up a paintbrush. So, and I've shared this story with enough people who have been wounded by their art teachers, who have been wounded by their teachers. I've heard so many stories about that. So about 15 years ago, gosh, it's been that long, I had this really big dream. And the dream was I was driving in my car and I was headed down south. And my car just turned off the road, went down this long winding road, and it stopped in front of this old Victorian house. And there were all of these women sitting on the front porch. And I said to the women, "Where is she?" And they all pointed and they said, "Upstairs." And so I walked through this old Victorian house and I got to the attic. And there was this old woman sitting in a rocking chair. And she had long white hair. And she says, "I've been waiting for you." And she says, "Come with me." We go down the stairs into this basement kind of dark area. And there are Native Americans in there. There are indigenous people in there. And there's this huge, huge paintbrush that's like a horsetail paintbrush, huge. And this old woman hands me this paintbrush. And she says, "Now it is time." And then all of a sudden, I'm flying through the Grand Canyon, and this horsetail paintbrush is painting all of these amazing images on the walls of the Grand Canyon. And I wake up from this dream, and it's one of those what Jung would call a big dream. It's in my body, it won't let me go. And I started getting on the internet, and I started looking for process painting teachers. It's like I knew that wound was so deep in me that it was something that I needed to go into. And I was blessed to find an amazing teacher. Her name is Chris Seidel. She lives in the Bay Area. She was doing a week long at Ghost Ranch near the Grand Canyon. And I went there and I did this week long process painting. I'm standing in front of this white piece of paper, and process painting for Chris, it's her saying is trust the brush. You don't need to think about it, just simply be present to the paper, the brush, and the paint, and what needs to come through will come through. And I remember standing in front of this blank piece of paper, and it brings up emotions now. I sat there and I wept. It was like, I could just feel all of that shame, and it was, it doesn't make any sense. It's just what went inside. So I began to trust the brush, and ended up becoming certified as a process expressive arts painter. And it was just simply pouring out what was present in my psyche. So I'd say in the last 3 to 4 years, again, I was in Hawaii, I was visiting the petroglyphs there, and I noticed my paintings begin to change. And then, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I decided, I'm going to see if anybody's interested in buying these paintings. And I've sold probably over 300 or 400 paintings. And I felt like, well, somebody want my madness? Is somebody interested in my craziness? And I guess they are, because a lot of my paintings, it's about the story. And so this is my little book. I don't know how much you can see it, but it's called Bone Woman Outsider Artist, which is my art name, and that's so I'm not seeing myself on the big screen, so I hope you can see this. This is one of the paintings. And the story that came from this one was my wrinkles. Damn, I fought hard for those lines. Every crevice a story, every wrinkle a prize. The birth of my daughter, the grief of losing my mama, the love of my beloved, all the belly laughter that ended up around my mouth because I grinned from ear to ear. I ain't pretty, and I'll tell you, there's a hell of a lot of freedom in letting go of for pretty, the crone revolution. So I don't know if you can see the crone there. So this is part of what comes through. I'll read one more. This one. I don't need to paint pretty or nice or perfect for it to make sense to anyone else. I need to honor these beings that come knocking on my heart and soul and give them a voice, because spirit matters. I have this deep knowing in my bones that all those beings in the other world are lined up for someone to bring them into this reality so they can whisper the ancient secrets we need to hear. So we can once again realize the world behind the world matters. Their wisdom matters in the times we're living. We need this wisdom. And one more I will give you before I paint. The pattern of my life has unraveled a billion times, and I have rewoven her over and over again. I'm on my knees again, unraveling the maiden, the mother, the queen, and I am reweaving the crone. My stitches are uneven. I prick my fingers with the needle. Blood drips into the tapestry, marking the territory of life and death. I am afraid. I am strong. I am vulnerable. I am fierce. I am anger. I am love. I am dark. I am light. I am a woman at the crossroads, leaving behind who she was and stepping deeper into the darkness of the night. The pattern of my life has led me to each of you. The pattern of my life is holy, profane, dance of creation. I'm still here. I'm still here. And that's another image. And as I say, it's a great mystery what will come through. So we're going to go on a journey. And one of the invitations that I will ask you to think about is, why do you paint? Why do you paint? And the other question I will ask you is, how does that little girl that was free, that never had to think about what it looks like, if anybody was going to like it, how does she need to show up into your paintings today? So let's return back to that little girl who was free, who danced as if nobody was watching, and who didn't care, but just simply was present to what came through. And I'm starting with some Indian ink. And I love Indian ink. I usually paint flat. And I spread it with credit cards. And we just simply paint. I work with acrylic paints most. And I put on music a lot. And I just let the paint come and play. I'm noticing a crow outside. It's calling right now. That I wonder if the crow has something to say about this painting. Sometimes I put on gloves. And I take the white acrylic paint. Motion that's going on for me. Canvas, receive it. A lot of times I sing to myself. It's all intuition. I'm feeling like red right now. Like I need some red paint. It's feeling a little fiery to me. One of my favorite colors, cadmium yellow deep. I have to step back and I have to like look and just, and again, you know, this is a process. We may not finish this painting today. I don't know what's going to emerge. I'm not going to rush it. White. A lot of my images that do come through are the old crone, the old wise women, the hag, the witches. I don't usually paint this big, which is a stretch for me, and that's good. I usually paint on 17 by 15 on birch wood. And I'm feeling blue right now, so we're going to show it to some blue right now and see what happens. My hands are sweaty and my photos don't want to go in. And I have to keep stepping back because what happens for me is that images start to emerge. And right now I've got a whole lot of paint on it and it needs to dry a little bit before the images start to emerge. And I was just told to put some gold. So I'm going to put some gold. Be curious to know and to track what's in your body right now, what's in your mind, what you think about this. Is it something you want to do? Is it something that feels scary? Is it something that feels like, what the heck is she doing? This is madness. I'd be curious just to track that. What's the stories that are going on as you watch me go through this process? What's happening for me is they're going, what the heck is she doing? This makes no sense. And right now it doesn't, but that's the surrendering part, is that it doesn't have to make sense. Is that I'm willing to stand in this place of unknown. I'm willing to stretch myself, the vulnerability of all of the other artists, you know, but it's like it doesn't matter because it was for me to show up to not knowing how to do something and be willing to share that with other people. So, and if okay. So what feels like is happening right now is there's an old one that has something to say. See her eye emerging a little bit here. And How y'all doing?
Excellent.
I'm just gonna take a deep breath for a second. Um, and want to just check in. So as I go deeper into this, and this face will emerge more. Can you see the face?
Yes.
Are you able to see this?
Yes, I can.
So then that, as I'm working with the painting, I'll keep bringing that out more and more. She's wet right now, so I think what I actually would like to do is just get a little feedback. And like, I do want to hear like what your feelings are around this process right now. So what's happening as you witness this process?
I think that as I listened to you and watched, the vulnerability really came in. I was also fascinated with it, with the word that you painted across the board, which was grace. So in experiencing what you were painting, I was asking for grace and surrender. So it leads you. I could see that you were leading, you were being led by yourself. But I also saw tree emerge, and within that tree, the face, and then this just fascinating to watch it all come, just, come out. And I'm also very interested in how you're doing your brushwork. It seems like it dances on the board.
Thank you, thank you. Again, it's all intuitive. I don't know what brush I'm going to use. I didn't know I was going to use a glove. So thank you. I love that reflection. Anybody else?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to say something right now. We give you permission.
I thought it was pretty brave to do a demo without knowing what you were going to do.
Yeah, very courageous. I was thinking as a very old emerging artist, meaning I didn't emerge until most people hang it up, that the whole phenomena of being highly self-directed and listen to yourself, particularly not apologizing anymore for no formal training and not knowing the rules, but just go with what feels right, is very uplifting and affirming. And I'm grateful for your role modeling that. Thank you.
Oh, I love hearing that. I love hearing that. It's our birthright to be creative. And we get taught so very early on about how something is supposed to look, and we start comparing it to everybody else. And so it really is, my hope that, and I also do process painting with clients and people, that it's about reclaiming that, I mean, we all knew her at some point. Like she would go out and she would build fairy houses out of wood, or she would make a piece of fabric into a beautiful, like, it's like reclaiming her. Like, there's so much wisdom in that little girl. And I think that's really what I want to give permission to, is to reclaim her and to also see how she informs the art that you do right now. Like, it's an and in both. So, but thank you for that, Nancy.
Thank you.
Can you bring the camera closer so we can see it up close? Because I can't see it very well.
Let's see. I mean, it's a total still work in progress, but I don't know if you can see the face that will eventually emerge for me. Does that help?
A little bit.
plug my computer back in.
We've also had messages, awesome demonstration. Thank you for sharing your process. I'm inspired. And from Catherine, love how you allow the art to happen, how you make room without judgment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rita, we spoke early on about artists who have artist block.
Mhm.
And, this I think is one of the most creative forms of doing or pushing through a block is allowing that wellspring of creativity coming forth. Can you speak a little bit on that? Or have you ever worked with artists that have had, like, you spoke of your own, but I mean, just really unable to move through a block?
The question I would ask is what are we blocking ourselves from?
Mhm.
And what's the wisdom in being blocked? Maybe there's wisdom in it. And I think for me, it comes back to it not having to look or sound or be a certain way. It's going back again to that kind of primal, not being attached to the outcome. And then once you give yourself permission to do this, then go back to what you're working on, then go back to your writing, then go back. But for me, it's the writer's block is that we're actually blocking ourselves that has some wisdom in it. And what is this wisdom that's waiting for us? And how do we get back to that wisdom? And for me, it's returning back to it not having to look a certain way. But this, again, this is my process. And it's freedom to me. There's so much in our lives that I have to be constrained in and do it. So when I go to my artist studio, this is total freedom. I mean, I couldn't do this in my studio because it wouldn't, the Zoom wouldn't work. So I had to bring my studio here. But it's my place of giving myself total permission to be myself. So that's.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody
And
else?
we had another question. They just wanted a reiteration on the name of your book, which is Bone Woman, Wisdom, and Outsider Art, right?
It's Bone Woman, Wisdom, and Outsider Art. It's on my my website, my big cartel where I sell my art. So, and a lot of it's related to women and growing older. That's a lot of what I write about.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So when you give yourself permission to be yourself, do you discover who you are?
I discover that culture puts a lot of layers on us that tells us who they think we should be.
Mm.
And so what I discover is that there is a lot of wisdom from our imagination. There's a lot of wisdom, which I call from the other world. Like the Celtic said, there's a world behind the world where imagination comes forth. I mean, all of our creativity, all of our myths, our fairy tales, our stories come from our imagination. So if we free up that imagination, then I know who I am. And I'm not trying to be somebody else or who somebody said I was supposed to be or how I was supposed to paint or what something is supposed to look like. It's like I'm reclaiming that third grader and then taking her into my crone. So it's like bringing wisdom that I believe we all came into the world with, and then we forgot that wisdom. And now I have permission to reclaim that through my creativity. Yeah. Anybody else?
Rita, just to make sure about the title of the book, if you could repeat it very clearly and slowly for others. And then I'm looking, your website is truetohernature.com.
That's one of my websites, but my art website is Bone Woman Outsider Art. And
Okay,
that's
I'm gonna find the link and put that in our discussion here. The chat.
Bone woman wisdom and outsider art.
I still didn't get the title of the book. Could you just go slowly and clearly?
Sure.
I'm going to type it into the chat box, okay, for everyone?
Okay.
Okay. Any more feedback? Any more questions? Any more stirrings?
I was just wondering what other mediums do you work with? Do you work with metallic paints or gold or silver leaf ever, or anything three-dimensional like plaster on the board and then painting it?
I do love metallic paints, and it's luminary. I love metallic paints. Acrylic. I mostly work in acrylic. I also work with clay. I make sculptures out of bones and stones and fabric and metal. It's all found objects, pretty much found objects outside of the clay. But yeah, it's and collage. I also use collage. Like I'll use collage. I'll cut it out and I'll put it on a painting, and then somehow the collage will be painted and become a part of the painting. You can see some of that on my art site. Mostly it's like my art is. I'm trying to tell a story with it. I mean, it's ultimately storytelling through my visual. Like, as I sit with her and I can see her emerging, you may not can see her yet, but it's like, for me, like, she has something to say. She has a lot of wisdom. She's been around for a long, like, millions of years, and she's seen worlds end, and she's seen worlds begin, and she's seen death, and she's seen rebirth, and she's seen it all. And it's like, I'm still here. So, eventually she'll have a story that she'll want to keep saying to me. So, some people would call this medium art, psychic art, spiritual art. Some people would just say it's a mess. And that's okay too. So, yeah, any more questions?
I just wanted to comment, I think it's emerging quite beautiful. And
Thank you.
yeah, you're very, very brave. Yeah, I've learned a lot watching you. Just makes me want to be more brave. So it's quite beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is your name Dia?
Dee.
Dee, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you. Well, that is my hope, that I give other people and other women permission. That really is my hope. So, so let's see. And sometimes I have to just stand back and I have to just like look at it and things start to emerge for me. Again, this is um, something I usually do by myself. So this is an interesting process to be in this process and being witnessed.
Rita, we had an interesting question while
Yes.
painting. She wanted to ask if you remember that flower that you painted in the third grade, and if you've brought it forth again to reclaim honor.
I don't remember the specific flower. I mean, I don't really remember it, but my whole journey has been about reclaiming that flower.
Mm.
I've done hundreds and hundreds of paintings and also helped other women reclaim that flower because we all in some ways had our flowers crushed in one way or another. In some ways, where someone had said, don't do it this way, don't do it that, do it like this, do it like this. And so, yeah, I've reclaimed that flower fiercely, really fiercely. And I'm very, very messy. I'm very messy when I paint. I love Indian ink. I love to play with Indian ink. Usually I paint flat because I use so much Indian ink and it just can go everywhere. As you can tell, I've anointed my walls and it's good. I'm going to be repainting them soon.
I'm hearing from a member that she was reflecting a memory that her teacher slapped her hand one day when she was painting a tree and said trees aren't purple. She's thinking now that she's been on a mission to reclaim that tree. Catherine
Well, I think I'll paint a purple tree for you. Yeah, it's that whole thing of you're supposed to color in the lines. Remember that one? In your coloring book, you got to color in the lines. And I literally, I don't know how to draw. If you were to tell me to draw a cat or draw, like, I can't, I know how to draw how I draw, but I don't know how to draw. So it's mostly how things begin to emerge.
Do you ever turn your painting upside down or different sides so you can
So I
see
do,
different things?
I do that, and that may happen with this one. It may happen with this one. And it will be interesting to see. I'm using a lot more paint in a small amount of time, so
That was my question. I see that you paint what I would call quickly. You know, you're moving quickly.
I do paint quickly.
Okay.
I do. Right now I have probably more paint than I would normally do. So it really does need to dry, because what happens in the drying is that then more of the images start to come through. So, I mean, there could be a billion different images in here. You know, like I can see a skeleton over here, but it needs to dry more. So,
Wow.
so maybe, what's our time right now? How are we doing on time? Are we good on time, Desiree?
I was trying to unmute Desiree.
Sorry, it's about 8 minutes to
Yeah, I
5.
think,
Okay.
yeah, I think we're doing okay. You still got, probably about 10 minutes or more.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm going to let this dry a little bit, and I thought I would read you one more. Would you like that?
Yes.
So, can you see her?
Oh, yes.
Oh. So what did she have to say? I want to live in a world where the wisdom of the wise woman is valued and respected. I want to live in a world where old women are honored for their hard-won wisdom. I want to live in a world where the grandmothers are taken care of and celebrated for the wrinkles upon their brows. I want to live in a world where belly laughter echoes down the halls of institution, corporations, and wise women lead the way. I want to live in a world where the crones gather on the dark of the moon and cackle and stir the cauldron and whisper secrets in the young daughter's ears, so they will remember where they came from, so they know where they are headed. I want to live in a world when the grandmother speaks, the universe stops to listen. I want to live in a world where the young ones know the old ones are standing behind them. I want to live in a world where all of creation joins in the circle together in beauty and in peace and equality. That's the world I want to live in. This is one of my angels with a cigarette. That's Myrtle. This was the maiden, mother, and the crone in the cave. This was called Sacrifice. This one was called Ancestors. And one more. So,
Are all of those your illustrations, Rita?
yes, that's in my book. Yeah. That's in
Very
my
nice.
book. So what I'm gonna have to do is let her dry more, and then I will complete her and post it on, should I send it to you, Desiree, or?
Yeah, you can post it. We can post it. Let us know, and we'll get it posted
She
to the
needs to
appropriate
dry, and
places for everyone to see it completed.
we'll see what emerges from that.
That's right.
So, I thank you all for going on this journey with me, for sharing my experience, for witnessing, for listening, for letting me be vulnerable. And I hope that something that I have offered today will inspire you to let that little wild child have a good time. So thank you so much.
Susan E. Caitlin, she said, I think your teacher gave you a great gift. It made you more determined and fierce about expressing yourself through art. Yay.
That's
Your art is so powerful and beautiful.
That's wisdom. Thank you so much. So yes, I thank Miss Dinners. Her name was Miss Dinners.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they wish to share?
Do you often write with your
I do.
art?
I write.
Poetry, stories?
Yeah, I'm a storyteller. I write all the time.
Mhm. It's a
That's-
big part of your expression is
It is.
your written word.
It is.
Mhm. It's quite beautiful.
Anybody else?
Someone did ask, what did that teacher say? I think the person had joined us a little late.
The teacher held up my painting and says, "This is how you don't paint a flower," in front of my third grade class.
Hmm.
And you're right, she did give me a great gift.
So do you have some narratives with all of your paintings? Sounds like poetry to me.
With most of them, a lot of them get posted. I have a secret Facebook group where I post a lot of my paintings and my writings. They're in my book. So a lot of it goes out on social media. And then I also have a CD of my stories that I told quite a few years ago, which you could probably find on YouTube now for free. So
What is the name of that?
it's called Mud, Blood, and Blackberries.
And it is in the newsletter, in her autobiography, or her biography, excuse me, in the newsletter, the palette, that information, okay?
Anybody else?
Rita, thank you so much.
I think I saw someone saying something. Please feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like.
Well, I was just going to say that I had the same experience in high school of all places when I tried a different way of painting flowers more abstractly. It got an F.
And how do you paint flowers now?
All different ways.
So you reclaim that part of yourself.
Yeah, trying to.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I love the heaviness of the silence in between. It really carries the truth here for all of us. Thank you so much, Rita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good meeting.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Rita.
But this will be reposted, won't it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I came in late. Looks interesting. Thanks, Rita. You ready to leave?
Yeah.
I'm letting people filter out and say goodbye as they desire before I end.
Thank you, Bobby, for being such an exquisite host. Appreciate you and all you do.
We're good partners.
Yeah. Sometimes you probably think, where is she?
You might
I'm
think
here.
You might think that about me, and everybody else who's still on here is hearing it.
Oh, goodness. Well, good night, everyone.
Good night.